Here we go. We're off and running. Welcome into the 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Another loaded show coming your way, as all things Niners are always talked about right here on the program. And that's why you got to hit that subscribe button, because I have you covered every day with Elite Niners coverage right here on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing on today's show. Are the 49ers going to have to sign a wide receiver given all of the injuries at that position? It is not ideal what the Niners have been dealing with throughout training camp and now the preseason. And this Niners injury trend, absolutely insane. Also, I'm going to explain why Niner fans should get excited that Robert Saleh is back as this team's defensive coordinator. Because in that preseason opener against the Denver Broncos, he did a lot of interesting things that we're about to break down. Stay tuned for that as well. But let's begin here. The 49ers wide receiver situation is in flux, and it's a problem. Jordan Watkins, the rookie fourth-round pick out of Ole Miss, who had a great spring, was having a great summer, got hurt. He is the most recent player at that wide receiver position to go down with an injury, and this is a brutal blow because he was really emerging to a point where he was going to have a role for this Niners offense in week one. And in that preseason opener against the Broncos, you saw what he's capable of doing. That's what he had been doing throughout camp and throughout the spring. The 50-yard contested catch, able to come down with that 50-50 ball, track it, and then pick up yards after the catch. And now, with him going down with that high ankle sprain, which he didn't even feel after playing the second most snaps in that preseason game until the next day, he's going to be out at least a month. And that, in the process, is going to curtail his development. The 49ers at practice on Monday were so thin at the wide receiver position, they couldn't even conduct one-on-one drills. Now, Brandon Aiyuk, it's hopeful that he is going to return around week 6 after suffering that ACL-MCL tear last year in that October game against Kansas City. But Jennings still dealing with that calf injury. We have no idea when he's going to come back. Demarcus Robinson has been enjoying a great training camp, but he's in the appeals process for his DUI arrest last November. And so while the 49ers have brought in all of these makeshift wide receivers, they've brought those players in by design just to have bodies. But is it getting to a point where San Francisco needs to sign a legitimate wide receiver? If the season were to start today, I'm not sure if that receiver room is good enough. And that's with Jacob Cowing returning to practice today. And you look at the top free agent wide receivers still available who have not signed with teams yet, who the Niners could sign. Amari Cooper has put together a tremendous career, borderline Hall of Famer. Gabe Davis would be a great scheme fit for the Niners, a willing blocker. He's physical. He can win on the outside with his physical frame. Nelson Agholar, former first-round pick out of Southern California. He's a player who's been around for a very long time, and he's played for some really good teams. Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl there. He's been an impactful player with the Baltimore Ravens, and I still think that he has a little bit of juice left, but obviously he's not to the level that Davis and Cooper are. And while I really liked Nelson Agholar at USC, he was a first-round pick, hasn't quite lived up to that, but he's been a very solid player throughout his career. Tyler Boyd has done some nice things with the Cincinnati Bengals. Last year with Tennessee wasn't great. And then you also have Odell Beckham Jr., who is still trying to play despite him getting off to an incredible historic start to his career, suffering from a lot of those injuries, which zapped what we thought was going to be a very special career. He took to Twitter to say this: "I'm not done yet. Thanks for the HR concerns and have a blessed day." He has been training in hopes that he can sign with the team. And we've talked a lot about Gabe Davis with the Buffalo Bills. He was one of Josh Allen's go-to wide receivers. He got a bag from the Jacksonville Jaguars during 2024 free agency. They let him go because they had concerns about that knee. They brought in a new regime. And while that knee got flagged as far as his physical goes, if it checks out with the medicals, I would be willing to bring him in because he's a big-bodied wide receiver who can go up and get it. He can run pretty well, and I think that Kyle Shanahan would really like him as that run blocker. Shoot, former Niner John Feliciano said a couple of months ago that Gabe Davis would be a good fit for the Niners. And then Coach Yak tweeted after the Jordan Watkins injury yesterday, "It's time for the Niners to sign wide receiver Gabe Davis." There is John Feliciano once again throwing up the prayer fingers, basically saying, Niners, you should look into it. Now, Kyle Shanahan was asked about the wide receiver position, and he said this: we're looking into everything. We'll always try to do the best, but we're also trying not to just panic and do something to survive a tough situation at the expense of something that would really hurt us later this year and next year. And what he's talking about there, do you want to sign an Amari Cooper, a Gabe Davis to this roster right now out of panic, out of desperation? And would it make sense to do that when, yes, you have injuries at the wide receiver spot, but Jennings is going to come back at some point, and Jordan Watkins is going to come back hopefully in a month. Then you're going to get Brandon Aiyuk, and then that marquee wide receiver who you signed, are they even going to have a role with this team? Or does that wide receiver get in the way and impede the development of a Ricky Pearsall, the development of a Jacob Cowing, the development of Jordan Watkins once he returns? And I think that's what the Niners are wrestling with right now. All of these injuries, and they're so thin at that position, but they don't want to make a move out of desperation to hurt some of the currently existing players on their team who they really like. Now, the good news, as I alluded to, Jacob Cowing did return to practice today. He did some one-on-ones, and they are easing him into team drills. This is a player who's been out the last couple of weeks because on day one of training camp, he injured his hamstring running against air. What the Niners could also do is maybe not sign an Amari Cooper, a Gabe Davis, or an Odell Beckham Jr., but you can monitor the waiver wire to see what other players get cut from other teams and don't make those 53-man rosters. And if those players either go through waivers unsigned, or if they're veterans and they could sign with another team, then you go that route. That can make some more sense, because if you sign a Cooper, an Odell, a Gabe Davis, they would sign expecting to have a role with San Francisco in 2025. Shanahan also alluded to that. There's possibilities later. None are guaranteed. There's lots of things that tie to that: who's available, how much they're available for, and the situation our team's in salary cap-wise. But yeah, we're looking into everything. Look, as far as the salary cap goes, the Niners have $45.5 million in cap room right now. What I worry about, though, with the injuries at the wide receiver spot, how this impacts the rhythm, the flow, the synergy of this offense. This is an offense in 2024 that did not have any rhythm. It did not have any flow. There was no synergy. Why? Because players were constantly in and out of the lineup due to all of these injuries. Offensive football especially is such a timing-based game. And the Niners are unable to work on that, route concepts, where you got to be, when to expect the ball, when to break off a route, seeing the coverage, knowing where to go if you're going up against zone. Do you sit down? Do you keep going? Do you have a choice route? All of these things are so important that you work on in practice. But the Niners aren't able to work on those things in practice right now because so many of their wide receivers are injured. The Niners do have a joint practice this week coming up against the Las Vegas Raiders before that Saturday preseason game, but this is a legitimate question. Will the Niners have enough bodies at the wide receiver spot? That is to be determined. And so San Francisco might be forced into a situation where they need to sign more external wideouts. And I took to Twitter because this has honestly become laughable at this point. Every year since Kyle Shanahan was hired in 2017, the Niners outside of 2023 have been top 10 in injury rate. And you look across the NFL, you'd be hard-pressed to find another team that has suffered from more injuries constantly than San Francisco. You look across professional sports, that's what led to me tweeting this out, that the Niners might be the most injury-cursed team in professional sports. It's getting ridiculous at this point. And then, of course, I took to X as well on my page at Chase_Senior. Give me a follow. I just had to crack a joke because I'm tired of seeing all these players get banged up. And this is Kyle Shanahan, obviously, at the NFL owners meetings from earlier this offseason, looking a little bit tired. East Coast time, had to get up early, and he was out a little bit late the night before. But when you were the number one most injured team in the NFL in 2024, and you're already the most injured team in 2025 and the season hasn't started yet, that is the mood for this fan base. But are there things that the Niners could be doing from a strength and conditioning health standpoint to avoid some of this? This tweet from John Chapman is one that I've referenced here on the show the last few days. This is insane to me. This was prior to the joint practice against the Broncos in the shadows of Levi Stadium. And Chapman, who also has his own Niners YouTube channel, check him out, he said this: by far one of the biggest differences between the Broncos and the Niners warm-ups is that the Broncos actually stretch. The Niners spend time doing dynamic warm-ups, but not a lot of static team stretches. What are we doing here? I mean, can we try to get to the root cause? Can we think about doing things differently? The injury history for San Francisco is this long and this concerning that Kyle Shanahan and the strength and conditioning staff have to look themselves in the mirror and they have to try to figure out a solution for why this continues to happen on a year in, year out basis. It's absurd at this point, and it gets me fired up because I'm fed up. Because if this team can stay healthy, you know what they're capable of doing. They were the fourth healthiest team in 2023. They made it to the Super Bowl and should have won. Even when they've been hurt, they've still been able to routinely make it to some NFC Championship games. So I also had to take to X and put out a prayer circle. Can we get the good vibes going? Can the football gods please bless the San Francisco 49ers? Can the football gods please keep this Niners team relatively healthy for 2025? Because if they can, we know what they're capable of. Shoot, when they've been banged up, as I said, they've been able to make it to NFC Championship games and Super Bowls. So let's put together a prayer circle and hope that the Niners can just relatively stay healthy. I'm not asking them to be a top 5 healthiest team in football, but can they stop being derailed by injuries where players are going in and out of the lineup every single day? Thank you, football gods. I appreciate you. All right, more to get to here on the show. We'll talk Robert Saleh coming up here just around the corner, but I need to tell you about this phenomenal deal. This Niners hoodie was $80. It is now on sale for just $48. Are you kidding me? This thing looks slick. You have the SF printed on the front with the Niners logo next to it. And this is a great deal that you don't want to miss. But you can only get this discount if you use our link, chatsports.com/Niners hoodie. That's chatsports.com/Niners hoodie. I'm going to put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's 49ers report. Football is almost here. That means fall is around the corner. Shortly after that, winter. You're going to need this hoodie, so get it now and get geared up for the start of the 2025 season. And if you're living in the Bay Area, we all know that sometimes it can get chilly year-round. All right, to the back half of the show. I'm excited to talk about this. Robert Saleh is back as the Niners defensive coordinator, and Niner fans should be excited given what we saw against the Denver Broncos in preseason game number 1. I thought that Saleh, with his backups against the Broncos' offensive starters, was creative, he was aggressive, and we saw some exotic looks. And it caused a lot of fits for Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and that Broncos offense. Bo Nix got rattled by Chase Lucas on that delayed blitz. He had to throw the ball away. That led to a safety. And the Broncos really struggled to move the ball going up against the Niners' backups. And that's because Robert Saleh, while still keeping the game plan vanilla, which is what you do in the preseason, was still able to be creative, aggressive, and exotic. He used players like Chase Lucas in unique ways. Chase Lucas, up until this point, has been a career special teamer. We saw on Saturday night, he has some juice. He can play. Had a couple of pressures on the quarterback. There was the corner blitz, then the delayed blitz, which led to that safety. The Niners defense was really firing on all cylinders. They were playing fast, physical. You know what they weren't doing? Playing timid, scared, or hesitant. And that is something that we saw from this Niners defense last year under Nick Sorensen. They were unsure. They were hesitant. They were indecisive. And with that, they didn't know what they were doing on the field. And they really struggled to play fast because they weren't confident in what they were doing scheme-wise and individually. What I'm also so jacked up about is that this young defense for San Francisco has a lot of potential. And we saw on Saturday night, we've seen throughout training camp, some of the flashes of what is possible for this unit. Throughout this offseason, we know what the Niners' approach has been. Let's shed salary. Let's get younger. Let's rebuild the defense. And the Niners are in the process of doing that. Grant put this tweet out, and it really puts it into perspective. This is a defense with 9 players on rookie contracts. You have Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff at one defensive end spot, Kalia Davis and CJ West at one defensive tackle spot, Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins flanking them along the interior, Michael Williams and Yetur Gross-Matos at the other defensive end position. You have D. Winters, Fred Warner at the linebacker spots, Upton Stout, Renardo Green, Diamador Lenore at corner. You have Marquis Siegel, who today was running with the ones. Then you have safety Malik Mustafa once he comes back from that ACL. And all of these players are either proven, and for these young players, of course, they have had their moments where you say to yourself, okay, I can see why the Niners drafted these guys, and you can see the potential that they have. You know who agrees with me? Brian Baldinger. Baldy's Breakdowns. He tweeted out some tape from what this Niners defense accomplished on Saturday, and he said, this Niners defense under Robert Saleh, not going to be vanilla. They are going to spice it up with a variety of fronts and pressures. No sense in saving it for the season. Better to work on it now. They worked on it on Saturday night, and we saw just a hint of what is to come in 2025. And because of that, better coaching, better scheme, better adjustments, better personnel, more athleticism, more speed, more physicality. This Niners defense in 2025 going to be a lot better than that Niners defense in 2024. Don't forget to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. I'm always talking Niners on my social media pages and here on YouTube. Don't forget to lock us in and hit that sub button right now. Let's go.